So let me get this straight. Suletta breaks up with Mercury, she finally meets her sister, and is then abandoned by her and her mother in the depths of space.
Man, that sucks!
Powerful Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby. Mobile Suit Gundam The Witch from Mercury needs a new subtitle. It's no longer The Witch from Mercury, it's The Tragedy of Suletta Mercury. I gotta give the series some credit, it does a really great job of finding a new way to rip my heart out every single week. And on the scale of ripping hearts out, this was a Kano Mortal Kombat styled fatality. The end of this episode left me feeling absolutely broken. I don't think things could get any worse for Suletta after this episode. I mean, she's pretty much been screwed over by just about every single person that she cares about. But big things are going down in the latest episode of The Witch from Mercury, so let's talk about some of the highlights. The majority of this episode follows Suletta as she's trying to get back to some sense of normalcy after basically being destroyed by Mercury in the last episode, of having her title of the holder taken away, of having her best friend and potential bride taken away, not to mention the aerial Gundam no longer in her possession and now in the hands of Mercury, Prospera, and Gwael Jeterk. Suletta is doing everything that she can in this episode to try and be a normal student again, while also in the back of her mind having that hopeless thought that maybe, just maybe, she'll be able to win back Mercury's love. This comes in the forms of normal school distractions, basically just hanging out with other fellow students, trying to do really well in class, and of course, trying to retake her title of the holder by piloting lower class mobile suits. She's still very capable and has a lot of cheery personality about her, but you can tell that there's this underlying sadness. This is not the same Suletta that we knew at the beginning of the series. And even with the help of her friends, getting out of this funk is not gonna be easy. There are little moments in the first half of the episode that I really enjoy. Like I said, a lot of it is mostly following Suletta and her various day-to-day school distractions, but I do love the scene where Gwael's brother actually comes and apologizes to Choo Choo, which I think is actually kind of great. It shows a lot of growth for his character. You know, he went through a life and death situation with someone that he hated, but this person ended up saving his life, so even he's willing to look past that, and you can even see that some of the characters might even be softening up to them a little bit. This is good characterization. On the opposite spectrum, you have everything that's going on with Mercury, Gwael, and Prospera as they're desperately trying to learn how to take control of the Bennett group, and that's going to come into the form of this brand new presidential election. The problem is they're going up against Shadiq, and this guy is one cunning bastard. There's a scene between him and Prospera in this episode which I thought was remarkably interesting, because we all know that Prospera is essentially the Char clone of the series, but I've also jokingly said that Shadiq is also kind of like that. He just sort of lacks the classical mask. So seeing these two in a room together, basically just sort of like trying to see if they can find any weaknesses, even some sort of vulnerability that they can take advantage of, is honestly kind of remarkable. What Mio and her crew did not anticipate is that Shadiq would go behind their backs and join Pale Technologies, which appears like it's going to be one hell of a thorn in their ass. This is owed to the fact that Pale Technologies themselves are also incredibly mysterious and seem to have their very own goals, which could involve the true Elan Saris, who also has another really great scene in this episode, again establishing that there's something a little bit more to this group and this character, and I'm not quite sure what they have planned, but basically everybody just kind of wants to take over the Bennett group and do their very own thing. I do love this whole multiple faction little proxy war that's going on between all of these groups, and I honestly can't really tell who's going to come out on top. I do know, however, that things are probably going to get really vicious and violent soon, as it seems Mio's plan in order to gain some appeal in order to become president is that she wants to help out the people of Earth, and she's doing it in a very naive Relena Peacecraft kind of way, if you know what I mean. At this point in the storyline, Earth is an absolute powder keg. It's only going to take someone with a match in order to make shit explode, and I have a feeling it's going to end up being Mio and her group, but not in the way that she probably expected, as it looks like as they're preparing to actually go to Earth, they're going to have some brand new people joining them, and one of them just so happens to be Kananji. Yes, the happy-go-lucky, rotund mobile suit pilot is going to be joining them, and this is pretty interesting, as Kananji is the one who's effectively responsible for killing Prospera's husband, Suletta's father. He's going to be joining them as they go to Earth with the aerial Gundam, and Prospera is going to be there. while this conflict is going on. What could possibly go wrong? There's so many interesting scenarios as to actually what could happen in this event. I have a feeling it's probably going to result in the actual death of Kananji himself. And this can come one of two ways. One, he could be killed by Prospera. Two, he could be killed by some random mobile suit. Three, potentially the Gundam Ariel being piloted by the real Eric could end up killing him. Or there's even another plot twist. Perhaps Kananji will be the one to actually go inside the cockpit of the Ariel Gundam. She could just take control of the permit limits and just kill this dude. Before I get to the most pivotal scene of the entire episode, I do want to talk about one other small scene which involved the character of Martin, who's basically spilling his guts about what he did with Nika, and it just so happens that listening to all of this is none other than Cecilia, the mega bitch of the entire series. I don't know where this part of the story is going to go, but anything with her character is kind of interesting, as I just don't know what they're planning on doing with her. But let's take a bite into the juicy center of this episode, the most important part, which comes at the very end, when Suletta is reunited with the Ariel Gundam, and she actually manages to get inside the cockpit when a crazy phenomenon occurs. Essentially, she is able to enter this data storm and communicate with the Eric Samaya AI, which exists within the Gundam itself. And at first, it seems like a nice, tender moment. That is until we get some pretty creepy revelations. Not only is Suletta the sister of Eric, but she is implied to be an actual clone of her, a replicant, if you will. And Eric isn't too thrilled about having a clone of herself, and this is where she essentially lets Suletta free. And by free, I mean she literally kicks her ass out into the depths of space itself to float endlessly in her very own tears and despair. Eric no longer has a need for Suletta. She can simply pilot the Gundam Ariel by herself, and rather than use her as some sort of catalyst for it anymore, she decides to take things into her own hands, joins Prospera as they make their way to Earth, leaving Suletta floating in space with an SOS signal, simply breaking down and crying after all of the events which have gone down. Suletta's world crumbled before, but in this one, it was absolutely obliterated. Everything she knows and loves and trusts has been completely destroyed, and I don't know what sort of future there is going to be for this character or how she's even possibly going to recover, as both Prospera and Eric, the AI, simply just assumed that her being free is probably the best thing for her. But Suletta is a character who has always needed a purpose, something to drive her to do something, and throwing her to a situation like this can result in a number of different things. It could be simply a tragic end for the character, or it could turn into something potentially violent for the future. This episode certainly made me realize that I don't think they're going to be able to wrap up this entire story properly in this second season, and I absolutely demand that we at least get another two cores to sort of smooth things out and show us that this series has a lot of potential, because it really does. There's just a lot of loose threads and things they could be building up to. It seems like there's a conflict which eventually is going to build amongst all of these various groups and factions, and I just don't think they're going to be able to contain it within the last 7 episodes of this season. And just like that, the depression continues in another shocking episode of the series, which, while is very heartbreaking, also manages to be incredibly entertaining all the same, being able to hook me in with all of these various plot threads which are finally starting to take place. I also thought it was kind of funny how this episode also managed to have a little bit of levity behind it, despite how heavy things are actually getting. All of the interactions between Mio Mio and Guale and Prospero when they're actually trying to come up with a plan for how she's going to become president has some surprisingly funny moments attached to it, and most of those come from the reactions from Mio Mio herself. But I think we needed some smaller moments like this, because damn, this show is just messed up right now. As for the future of Suletta, it remains to be seen. Like I said, something good could come of it, something bad could come of it. I'd really love to get your thoughts about this episode, but I will say that I really did love this episode, and I just absolutely cannot wait to see where things are going to go next. What do you think is the next step for Suletta? Is she simply just going to die in space? Will she be found? Will she start a brand new mission? Maybe start a new crew with her classmates? Will she be reunited with Mio Mio? Will their love be reclaimed? Will their friendship be mended? It's really hard to say. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and your predictions for the future of the series. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I will see you all next time, and as always, stay stand there, baby.